This is one thing we love about land relative to multifamily or other commercial assets. We have led a few syndications, and the anxiety and the pressure knowing that you have $5 million of investors' capital in a deal, it's really intense. It's not a small responsibility versus some of our deals. If something doesn't deliver the way we thought it is, it's our own learning and it's our own adjustment. It's really a stress-free business in terms of that. It's just keeping the deal flow going.
Welcome to Spur Equity's Spur Your Wealth podcast, your ultimate guide to passive income through real estate investing. Join us as we together discover the secrets of building wealth, one passive investment at a time.
From expert insights to inspiring success stories, this podcast will inspire you and empower you to take control of your family's financial future so you can live life on your own terms.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Spur Equity's Spur Your Wealth podcast. We are your hosts today, Param Singh and Rav Singh from Spur Equity. So on the Spur Your Wealth podcast, we aim to bring successful investors and experts and thought leaders to our podcast so they can share their story and secrets in investing so we can all stand to benefit from their experience. And so on today's episode, we have the power duo of Mike and Ligia Deaton. In 2016, Mike and Ligia escaped from the corporate world to go full-time into real estate. They have since launched multiple real estate businesses across asset classes to combine the tremendous cash flowing returns of land with incredible tax benefits of commercial real estate. So they're currently active land investors as well as partners in more than 1,000 units of multifamily assets and enjoying giving back by coaching others to do the same. They love enjoying ultimate lifestyle freedom while delivering on their mission in making significant impacts to both investors and communities. When they're not busy adding value and serving others, you can find them in their home in Colorado, in the Colorado mountains, enjoying the great outdoors. So welcome, Mike and Ligia. So happy to have you on the Spur Your Wealth podcast. Really looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having us on. We're excited to share our story and hopefully inspire a few others.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So, as we get started, the thing that really speaks to me is the whole story about, leaving corporate behind. Right. And so I recently did that a year ago, and it was so liberating. And so the everything that you said or in our conversation before around sort of the freedom and lifestyle, that's really what we're focused on, what Rav and I are focused on as well. And so tell us a little bit about that journey, about kind of how you got started. What was the target in your mind as you started real estate, and with that target in mind of leaving corporate, the corporate lifestyle behind, and moving towards a life of freedom?
Yeah, happy to. I'll kind of lead off here, but for us both, I would say it wasn't so much a pre-planned or anything like that. It really came out of just a situation that arose, several situations that lined up in our lives. But Ligia and I both really just did like most people. We entered the workforce at a young age. We found jobs. I got into manufacturing and operations, and I was in top companies. Motorola, Nokia, Microsoft, just really in these big corporations. That's Ligia and I met each other we were both working for Nokia at the time. I was working overseas. And that was really, I would say, our view of life and how our professional careers were going to go. It was, working for people, collecting a paycheck, saving in a 401k vehicle, and life was happening. Mm-hmm. And, I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Ligia also has read it. In the back of our minds somewhere, I think we had this thought of, we should have some rental properties, or we should create a side income stream, but we just didn't act on it. And we were busy working our lives. And, it was the typical American. We had a house, we had cars, we had daughters going to college, all these bills. And for us in 2016, we both got let go from our companies. And, for various reasons, Ligia's was working in healthcare and they were consolidating operations in a different state. Similarly, my role in Microsoft was moved from Dallas Fort Worth back to corporate headquarters. I didn't want to really move to Washington. And so we both found ourselves out of work. And our initial thought was, we got to get a job. And, for us at that time, our income, our only sources of income were tied to our jobs. And so when our jobs went away, our income stopped. And it was unnerving. I mean, we had savings and we had some means to survive for a little bit, but that was the knee-jerk reaction was, gosh, we got to work our network, get a job. And I think for both of us, we just really had a resistance, like a dread of, what kind of company am I going to land in? What's the corporate culture going to be like? Am I going to have to do more business travel? And so we took that moment to really sit down and talk to one another and explore what we wanted out of life. And it was more freedom, and it was more control over our time and even our income. And so we were familiar a little bit with land investing as a concept, but not in detail. But we decided to go all in that moment. We just said, hey, let's take some money. Let's go all in this and see if it works. And if after 6 or 12 months it's not working, we'll pivot and go get jobs or do whatever we needed to do. And so, I think for us, I'm a very safety oriented person when it comes to finances. I like to have money in the bank account. I like to have, I'd like to know I have a certain amount of cash flow coming in. And so it was hard for me to make that pivot. Less so, I think, for Ligia. She comes from a different background and has a different money story than I do. But anyway, we just decided to give it a go. And, we can get into more of the story down the road. But that was really our genesis and how we decided to go. We don't recommend that to other people. If you're able to start a side hustle and kind of transition a little more gradually, I think that's probably the safer way to go about it. But, like I said, life aligned for us. We were empty nesting. We had some means and some resources. And so a few things lined up such that I think it gave us the confidence. It gave me the confidence anyway to say, let's give this a go.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. And by the way, thanks for sharing that, because I think there's so many listeners out there who are probably in the same mindset. Certainly we were, right? And everybody, we've been taught that work hard, great job, 8 to 5, right? Pay your bills on time, get a nice house, a dog, a car, whatever, right? And so that's the paradigm. That's where we live. That's really the world that's around us, because that's what we've been taught. School teaches us that, and so think outside the box. It's very, very hard unless and until you start meeting with people. And so I'm hoping that the story that you just shared with us and our listeners will resonate to them, right? Because they're going through the same sort of challenges. I had a friend this weekend, just this weekend, he told me that, he's probably my age, maybe a couple of years older than me. He said, I'm retired. And I told him, good job. I mean, congrats, because not everybody takes that leap of faith. Most people think, hey, kids are in college and I have to work even harder and I have to support my family. And here this guy's thinking, look, I already have a path for them, right? I already have a path for my family, for my financing. So how much really do I need to work? Maybe I need to focus on other things in life that I really truly want. And it could be travel, it could be giving, it could be so many different things. Life's not just about work, and then you just sort of go away, right? It's more about things in life that you want, that you need. And so thanks again for sharing that, because I think that's really powerful for us and our investors to listen to, because everybody's probably thinking in the same direction, that I really have to work hard. Maybe I have plans, but it's hard for me to take that leap of faith. And you guys took that leap of faith. So congrats on that.
Yeah, I love what you said there. So many aspects of that also weave into our story. I mean, we took that opportunity to downsize. We had a home in Dallas. We sold it and we rented for a few years while we were starting up our businesses. We took the opportunity to relocate and we moved from Dallas to Colorado just because we wanted to enjoy it while we were young enough to get out and be active and do things now, rather than, work until you're 60, 65, 70, and then think, okay, I'm going to sail away on the sailboat or spend my days on the golf course with my buddies or something, which, there's nothing wrong with that. I think for my models of the world, I didn't see many people achieving that. My dad today still works to bring in some income, and my mom, she was a school teacher. She has a fixed income, but she's feeling it, like, the cost of living going up, and she's really struggling. And yeah, so it's good to take advantage of things. And exactly your point, it's nice to have enough. I mean, I don't know that a lot of us really have that mindset, because there is more to life in terms of service and community and family and enjoying those types of things.
I think that I wanted to add that another thing that happened to us was we realized that job security was partially an illusion,
Mm-hmm.
that we can get let go at any time. And we were in a place in our lives that we really wanted more control of what's going on with our finances for long term. We wanted to create a certain path for us that would give us that sense of security and that sense of control as much as we can have it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And that was, I mentioned that, I left the corporate world full time last year. It's been, a little over a year now. And it was so liberating to be able to do that. Right. I mean, your story was different, but, you had to figure it out because of the situation. But when I started into real estate, I didn't necessarily have in mind the same thing, that, oh, this is going to be my exit from corporate necessarily. It was after the first couple of wins that I had an aha moment that, wait a minute, this absolutely could be an exit. This absolutely can replace and provide for my family. And to Ligia's point, it gives me that sense of control, that I'm now the master of my destiny versus, relying on corporate entity or whatever, right? That, again, you're only as secure as the company, or, how well you're doing. So many people have been in that situation, and it's like they find themselves, wait a minute, that my only source of income is now gone. And they have to make it work. So, we started doing the real estate thing, Rav and I, to really, kind of add to that income stream, so that in case, if there is anything, that at least there's some income coming in. But we've quickly found that, wait a minute, this can replace, in some cases surpass, right, we're making on the corporate side with less time investment. Certainly we had much more time investment early on, but as you prime the pump, or as you set up these businesses, it's much more passive, right, as you continue to grow. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit to some specifics. So Rav and I have been doing, a lot of multifamily, and a lot of listeners have been, part of that journey, as investors. We've also gone into like other asset classes like self-storage and industrial, but again, really commercial assets, built, complexes and things like that. But we have done a couple of land deals, and that's where I want to bring the conversation, because you guys are doing quite a bit in the land world. And so if you could explain a little bit about, again, how you got into land, what opportunities were there, but even with land, there's so many different ways to skin the cat, right? So many different ways to invest. So tell us a little bit about your thesis and the types of opportunities that you're finding on the land side, and how they've kind of generated, sort of regular income, or kind of build up your net worth, right? As far as investment goes.
Sure. So, in that moment where we were redefining what we wanted, we had been, or at least I had been, exploring podcasts just like this. Like, what are people doing out there? What are side hustles? Some were focused on real estate, some were just more general business podcasts. And I had, around the same time, come across two different individuals that were on podcasts talking about land flipping, essentially. And they were touting the incredible return on investment they were getting, like triple digits. And so it had piqued my interest a little bit already. And I had even invested in a toolkit or a little coaching package, but I was working full time. And so I really hadn't cracked it open at all. And so in that moment, Ligia and I just talked it over, and we said, maybe there's something to this. Let's give that a go. And it was our start into real estate. And it still today is our mainstay. It's really our bread and butter in terms of cash flow and revenue. But at its core, it really is a pure flipping model. It's buying low and selling it at market value. And so really, like they say, you make your money on the buy. It's really
Mhm.
incredibly powerful in this land model. So we're buying vacant land, and it can be commercial or residential. It can be rural or urban. It really doesn't matter. But it's really about people might be familiar with the house flipping model, and there's a direct outreach, right, to people to say, hey, we'd love to buy your house. We'll make you an offer. Well, it's the same in land. We reach out to property owners and we make them an offer, and that offer is below market value. And so it's a numbers game. We get a certain percentage of people that are willing to sell their property for various reasons. They've inherited it, or they're tired of paying taxes, or they bought something 25 years ago and they thought they were going to do something with it and now they haven't done it. And so there's various reasons that people are willing to just sell their property. And so we buy property below market value, and then we turn around and we resell it near market value. The bulk of what we do is we owner finance. And so like if we have a $50,000 piece of property or 30,000 or whatever, like a car, we will finance it for other people. And, we try to keep an affordable monthly payment. But over time, what we've been able to do is really just stack up dozens of those promissory notes, essentially, so that it's like a rental income. And so now it is passive at this point, right? We did some active work up front, but now we're just collecting notes. And then similar to other real estate models, there is a replenishment cycle because our contracts expire 5, 6, 7 years. So we do have to keep a lead flow coming in and keep things going, but it's much more of a maintenance mode. It's really kind of a low touch business. It's as much as we want to put into it. And we do that. So, we went off in April to visit Ligia's family. We took the whole month off, essentially. Our business still ran, but we had money coming in and we were able to do that. And I would say we've done that the last 2 years. And in April has been our biggest revenue month each of those last 2 years. It's kind of crazy.
So maybe you need to go. Maybe you need to take more vacations, right?
Do stuff, but there's various reasons for that. But the land business is kind of at its core. The way we run it, it's that way. And as you touched on, you can get more sophisticated as you go. You can entitle land, you can rezone it, you can subdivide it, you can develop vertically on it, build to rent, single family homes, commercial property. I mean, it's so flexible, land. That gives it its power, really, I would say. We have since diversified into commercial ventures as well, because the downside with land is it doesn't depreciate, and so you don't get the tax benefits like you do with commercial. And so we have diversified into commercial assets to get largely the depreciation and the passive losses that come along with it. However, land and the way we run it in its very simplistic format, the risk is super low. I mean, we've never lost money on a land deal. We have lost money in commercial assets, unfortunately. I mean, things can go wrong. And so along with the passive losses, there are greater risks of very real losses. You have to be aware of those kind of things. And so for those reasons, we like land and we stay in land. We still get into, multifamily it's been so far, but we're interested in storage and triple net leasing and some of the other more sophisticated commercial assets. But it's really a little bit for diversification, but it's mostly just the power of depreciation and keeping that money in our business accounts.
Sure.
Such that
I mean, seems like at the end of the day, as you said, it's a very simplistic model which works for you, right? There's some people that think that I really got to have a huge business plan and make it really complex, just in investing in general. And it seems like for you, it's just buy low, sell at market. And so I love that, because there's definitely value. You can't create more land. So, strategically, if you're looking, do you look in certain markets or do you look in certain demographics? Are you only in Colorado when you're doing this? Kind of tell us a little bit about, what exactly are you looking for?
Yeah, we typically look for markets where there's just a lot of land, and not so much in terms of size of land. I mean, that obviously is helpful, but a lot of property owners. And so, we want to, like I mentioned, it's a bit of a numbers game. We reach out to 1,000 property owners and we get 10 or 15 people that are willing to do a deal. And so ideally our markets just have a lot of vacant land. And so you can think of West Texas, or, Colorado has a lot of vacant rural properties. And, we have, I'm a very analytical person. I come from the world of operations and engineering, and I love to put a spreadsheet together, put a matrix, look at early days. We were doing this. We were looking at, how user-friendly are the county websites? What are the demographics? What is the velocity of sales going on in a market? And these days, we found that pretty much all markets work. It really depends on your thesis. We coach people now in getting started in the land business. And really, we look at two things that a client has, and it's their resources. How much time do you have or want to invest in the business? And how much money do you have to invest? And that determines a bit like, are you buying property in Aspen, Colorado, that's, $1 million for a property? Or do you need to stick to a West Texas where maybe you can pick up some properties a lot more affordably? There is so much land, vacant land in the US. We frequent certain markets only because of focus. Like we don't really spread ourselves too thin. We target certain markets. We'll go, and we've had great success in some markets, and we stay there. And then we try new markets every month or two, just, to continue to spread out. But I mean, we know people in the business that are in urban areas in Houston, in different places like that. We know other people that are, way out into remote areas of Utah or Nevada, or just, it's really a powerful business model because there's a lot of people that love to have land. And so it's there's a great marketplace out there, and a lot of people that are willing to sell their properties.
How do you find, so talk to us a little bit about, obviously from an acquisition standpoint, you mentioned that, it's a lot of the same thing. It's a lot of just, finding properties and then calling them directly, putting those feelers out and stuff. Talk to us about the exit, and how do you find, you said, hey, there's plenty of people that want land. How do you find it? How do you market it? What kind of tools are you using to find the right buyer, right, in those markets? Is a lot of networking happening? Because you're probably part of a lot of different groups, right, that you're giving your focus. And so talk to us a little bit about how you find the exits for your properties.
You want to run through some of the channels we use there?
Sure. We have been using and had a lot of success with Facebook Marketplace, where there's a lot of eyeballs and people are looking for land. We have used Zillow, obviously, and in the past have used Craigslist, which is like a free platform where you can put your ads out there. We have used also there are some paid sites like land.com or landcentury.com, and we have had subscriptions in the past. And at some point, sometimes it worked, and then after a while it stopped working. So we're trying different things. We have used also realtors to promote our properties. So we're kind of leaving non-stone unturned somehow.
Yeah, it's really flexible on the sell side. I mean, like Ligia mentioned, there's free channels. There are a lot of them, and that we have great success. And then there's the paid ones that she mentioned, even to the realtors, which, I mean, and so it really, again, it comes down to your resources in terms of how much time do you really want to spend actively marketing your property, or do you just want to partner with a realtor and say, hey, I'll give you a commission on some of the land you sell. And also, since we've been doing this 7 years, we have a good database of people that have been interested in land. And so we have our own email list that we can also market properties to people and give them a first look or even a discount or something. And so we've cultivated that on the side that helps as well.
And the reason I asked that question is exactly that, right? So like sometimes when folks are kind of the outside looking in, they sometimes don't know, what works, right? And whether, how much sophistication we have to have in a business to be able to do that. And so the tools that you mentioned, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it, right? And so it really comes down to, and I tell folks this all the time, that look, with real estate, there's so many different ways to do it. There's so many different ways to actually, different, asset classes, different, when you want to do short-term rentals in Airbnb, or you want to do a long-term rental, and there's plenty of ways to actually make money or get started. But the other thing that I want people to recognize is that it depends on your personality too, right? Exactly what you asked the folks is, how much time do you want to spend on this versus using resources out there that'll do it for you, right? That you do part of the work, and then you use somebody else's expertise to kind of let's say it's a realtor or a broker, etc. But the tools that are available are some of the tools that folks are already used to using, like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and Zillow and other things. So I think folks have to get with that realization that all of these tools are out there, whether they're free or they're paid, but it's really up to you how much time you want to devote to it. And some of those tools are, again, like, folks are already familiar with it. They're already on those platforms. And so it doesn't take much to kind of get over the hurdle and start doing it in real estate, and using those same tools to be able to, enable you to do real estate investing. So I wanted to shed that light, right? Because sometimes people think that we're using tools that they haven't even heard of, right? And how do I learn something new? And Rav says it often, that we talk about, that we sometimes our own hurdle, we sometimes get in our own way by saying, like, oh, this is going to be too hard for me, or I can't do it. And sometimes you just have to pull the trigger, right? And kind of try it. And yeah, you may stumble along the way, but I find that we talk about, it's either success or learning, right? We don't call it a failure. So if you stumble, you just learn something that, you can do it better the next time. So it's either success or you learn something. So that's the mindset that we try to tell our listeners and our investors. And, we obviously welcome investors to invest with us as we do deals, but we're also encouraging them to do their own deals and try to figure out, what makes sense for them. And again, the podcast really is to shed light into things that other people are doing that Rav and I may not be doing, so that they can have another avenue and saying, hey, this piques my interest. Let me connect with Mike and Ligia and find out more about about what they're doing in their world. So we want to inspire folks that, hey, even if it's, like you said, a side hustle, if it's not even a goal of like, oh, I want to or I want to leave my job, or I want to leave my business. It could just be, hey, I want to dabble in some of these side hustles to get additional source of income, enabling them to be able to do that. So I think that's important to kind of share our stories to, show what's possible out there.
Mike, I have a question for you guys. So in regards to just what you shared regarding land and regarding your investment thesis on how you guys are investing, are you investing with your own capital? Are you investing where you're raising capital and having friends and family? Tell us about, your investing, overall business plan. And then also, if you don't mind letting us know, how many deals have you guys done so far, or what the future looks like in regards to where you guys are headed?
Yeah. So in terms of capital, we started with some seed money. When we decided to go into business, we just said we were going to allocate a certain amount of capital in a runway of time. And this business it's super powerful. I mean, our return over the last 7 years is triple digit annual return. So, I mean, we get 135-ish annualized return on our investment. And so it generates cash flow very quickly. And so we haven't ever really had to tap into leverage or lending. We continue to we have a business pool of income, and it has fulfilled everything that we've needed so far this year. Before I pivot into that, so I will say this is a great business to be able to use leverage in, because the returns can be so good. You can pay people 15% if you want. Like, if you have friends and family and say, hey, let's go in this deal or future deals, and I can cut you in on 15%. And people are thrilled to make 15%, annualized return generally. And so there's plenty of margin to play with. It's also great because you can be inefficient in your business, and you can maybe make some missteps or two, and it easily accounts for it. So you can learn those lessons, as you said, Param, and they're not as painful. But yeah, in terms of deal flow, we've done hundreds of deals over the last 7 years. We do, our deal sizes are, when we buy properties, we between on average 5 and 15,000 each. So we do a lot of volume just to kind of do that.
Yeah.
But this year we're climbing up a bit. We're looking at, 6 and 7 figure deals. We'll sacrifice margin on those. I mean, people aren't going to sell their $1 million property for $250,000. Like they're going to get a realtor and they're going to sell it on the marketplace, most likely.
Right.
But on a percentage ROI basis, we'll sacrifice some vanity metrics, some percentage, but we'll make a bigger dollar amount. And getting into those, we will probably go into more of a levered situation where we either get a line of credit from a bank or we bring in some friends and family. I don't know if we'll do any formal capital raising for those kind. This is one thing we love about land relative to multifamily or other commercial assets. We have led a few syndications, and the anxiety and the pressure knowing that you have $5 million of investors' capital in a deal is really intense. I mean, it's not a small responsibility versus some of our deals where, okay, if something doesn't deliver the way we thought it is, it's our own learning and it's our own adjustment. And so we really enjoy that. And so that's also why we gravitate a lot more towards land, because it's really a stress-free business in terms of that. It's just keeping the deal flow going. But yeah, we're looking to do bigger deals. We're also intrigued by more value add strategies in terms of either subdividing bigger parcels or vertical developments. We've met a few people that have done that, and they do it more in a syndication style where they raise capital, return the capital, and do the development. And so that is something that we're exploring. We haven't quite pulled the trigger on. We know some people in Colorado Springs, which is not too far away from us, and so we're exploring tapping into the city council and some of the developers and understanding where geographically are things spreading such that we can maybe find some good deals there. But for right now, we're really happy with the freedom and flexibility that we have today. So we don't want to overcomplicate it and put ourselves in another job situation. But at the same time, we love real estate and we're excited to maybe try something a little more sophisticated in that way.
It's the ultimate lifestyle freedom that you guys have, and you don't want to sacrifice that. And why would you, right? But some people get into that mode more, right? And so next, and that mentality ultimately sometimes helps you, but sometimes it hurts you.
Right.
Majority of the time, it does go the other direction. So I'm really happy for you guys that you guys are choosing to do this and learning, and who knows, right? I mean, maybe the next step is what you're thinking, bigger deals, more syndication, and this and that. But it comes with its own business plan. It comes with its own sort of timelines and stuff. Right. So right now you guys are enjoying what you're doing. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
And I want to add, right. So again, to our listeners as well, and Rav and I do this constantly, and our wives, Harlev and Jaspreet, help us as well, that whenever we're looking at deals, wherever we're looking at more deals, really grounding ourselves back in the why. Right. Because I think sometimes, as Rav said, sometimes when deal flow comes and other things come, opportunities come, sometimes we lose the why and we just kind of chase the deal. And so if you're grounding yourself back in the why, it's like, hey, why do we start this? It's because we want freedom. Well, taking on 15 deals right now is not going to give me that freedom, right? So grounding us back in the why is really important. So I want to mention that to the listeners, that if you are looking at real estate, again, great vehicle to build your wealth, to preserve your wealth, to do all that. But definitely have a clear indication of what your why is, right? Because every decision that you're going to make, whether it's passive investing or active investing, make sure that it's grounded in your why. That's really important. And, that's what I heard from Mike and Ligia as well, that, you're doing this for your lifestyle. And so, you don't want to complicate things, right? Keep it simple and, what makes sense for you right now at this life stage. And so that's great. That's wonderful. So, as we kind of just going to do a time check here and kind of wind down, but I wanted two more pieces of wisdom from you, right? Mike and Ligia, around what does 2024, 2025 look like for you? What are you excited about in the world of real estate as we come off of a challenging sort of last 18 months and going into, sort of hopefully some relief, in 2024, 2025. And then, what gets you excited from a real estate standpoint? And then secondly, if you would, I know a lot of folks are interested in some of the things that you're doing. So how do our listeners, what's the best way to connect with you, directly, and so they can, learn more from your story?
As far as excitement goes, so we last year in 2023 launched a coaching program to help other people get started in land. And, what we wanted to do a little bit different is we struggled when we started with the mindset. We didn't come from a world of being an entrepreneur or a business owner. I had a strong operations background, so I had a lot of familiarity with, setting up a structure and running things, but it was all new, and we had a lot of self-doubt. And so we started a coaching program that combines, both the nuts and bolts of starting up a land business, but also delivers a lot of mindset support and help and coaching in that way. And so we've helped many people get started in land, which has been so transformational for us. It's been super rewarding to watch other people go through this transformation. So exactly what we've been talking about here, like, people don't necessarily know how to get started, or they want to leave their job, or they don't want to leave their job. I mean, real estate is so powerful. So that, I would say, is what excites me and gets me going. And so we started a couple formats. We have like a video series that's really just basic foundational, but we also do one-on-one coaching. This year, we're in the second half of the year going to start some group coaching. We're still trying to figure out exactly how we're going to deliver that. But those things are really energizing me and getting me going. Because the day-to-day land business, I mean, we've kind of got it down to a rhythm and a flow, and it's on a good course there. But really giving back is what always has and still does get me juiced and energized. Even when I was in the corporate world, I loved coaching my team, and I loved watching them grow and develop. And so to be able to now leverage that into just a different industry or a different class is great. And that's really what's kind of giving me the juice every day to get up and keep going and work with people and watch them transform. In terms of getting in touch with us, really the best way, we have a website, flippingdirt.us. And if you go to flippingdirt.us/freedom, we've kind of put that together as like a podcast landing page where, if you hear us and you're interested in more, we have a couple of ebooks where you can read more about land. Our contact information is there if you want to reach out an email or phone or set up a Calendly appointment. All that's kind of on that one landing page to help people learn more about land. And that's what we're all about at this point, is really just helping people find their path. And it really comes down to just taking action. I think you mentioned it earlier. I mean, we have to sometimes get out of our way and just take a step. Like it's okay. I've struggled with this my whole life. I was a first child. I had this fear of failure. I needed to be seen as a successful, always taking the perfect step. And I've really had to let go of that as I've been an entrepreneur and just understanding exactly what you said. Like, it's either success or it's learning. So I redefine failure as a learning. And so for me, it's all about learning and growth. And we've made some big missteps in investing, and it's painful, but we've learned from it. And I think we've grown better as a result of it. So it's really comes down to all that. But yeah, it's the power of real estate is undeniable. Yeah. And as you mentioned, there's so many ways to get involved that you just have to take a step, because that can be overwhelming in and of itself. And so sometimes you just have to try and go, "Ooh, I hate this," or "Hey, this is great."
Oh yeah, you quickly will find out the things that you don't want to do, right? So as you navigate all the different paths, right, you might find yourself on a path and say, "You know what? This was great. I learned something, but I don't want to necessarily go down that route because I don't have the time or I don't have the mindset." And then you can try something different, right? And so Rav and I did that. We've gone through a whole slew of different things that we very quickly found out that's not for us.
To find those, yeah.
So
nope.
Exactly. But to your point, I really love, this kind of community. Real estate has been such a welcoming community for us, right? That people are more than willing to share their successes and their missteps and their learnings with each other. And because it is a team sport, right? There's very few avenues of real estate where you're doing it all by yourself. And so the partnership aspect of it, so you're going to come across some of the same people, some of the same players, and you're going to work together towards success. And I really love that aspect of it, and people willing to share again their missteps. So just like you did on this podcast. So I want to thank both Mike and Ligia for you guys sharing your time and sharing your story with us and our listeners, and sharing your wisdom with us today. So I want to thank you again for sharing your journey with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on. It's been a pleasure.
Well, great. That's and that is all the time that we have for today. So if you want to connect with Mike and Ligia, go to their website, flippingdirt.us, to connect with them directly. And for our listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of Spur Equity's Spur Your Wealth podcast. Again, we are Param Singh and Rav Singh from Spur Equity. Remember that your journey to financial freedom begins both with knowledge and action, where knowledge is power,
but action is superpower. So until next time, happy investing. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spur Your Wealth podcast. We hope you enjoyed the valuable insights and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on future episodes filled with actionable tips and strategies.
If you want more information about our investment projects, visit us at SpurEquity.com. If you have an inspiring story to share and would like to be a guest on our podcast, email us at podcast@SpurEquity.com. Until next time, happy investing.